news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. Thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. Every 10 years, we all take part in the census, the counting of each person living in the U.S. Those population numbers are used to draw national congressional maps, state district maps, and citywide district maps. Now, we all remember what happened when the state district maps were approved. El Paso lost one state district, forcing two sitting state representatives to run against each other. But city leaders have not approved citywide district maps. We elect our city leaders to represent our district based on those districts. Right now, there are 8 city representatives representing the 8 districts, from the Upper Valley to the East Side, from the Northeast to the Lower Valley. But for some areas of town, those district boundaries could change based on the 2020 census. However, the new district boundaries have not been approved, and the clock on upcoming elections is ticking. City council members discussed El Paso's district maps 2 weeks ago.
Resolution adopting a districting plan which establishes new council representative district boundaries based on the 2020 U.S. Census data to become effective immediately, and dissolving the districting commission as they have completed their duties in the redistricting process per city charter.
That was the issue taken up by City Council 2 weeks ago. City leaders are expected to approve district maps by this week. Joining me to talk about the eventual approval of district maps is Joe Pickett. Pickett is a former state representative and former city representative. He's also expected to run for city office. Also joining us is Carmen Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is representing the League of Women Voters. The League believe approval of citywide district maps should have been taken care by now. Well, I want to welcome both of you. Ms. Rodriguez, I want to start with you. The League of Women Voters brought up concerns about the length of time it's taking city leaders to approve the district maps. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. But we weren't the only ones. Other members of the public also brought it up when we learned that initially they were going to wait until July, and then the deadline was moved up. So it's a little bit better, but it's still pretty late in the process.
Yeah. What is so concerning about, and I'm asking you, we've had this discussion before, but I'd like you to break it down for our audience. What is so concerning about city leaders taking so long to approve district maps?
Well, for one, if you're interested in running for one of the districts and you don't know where the boundary is going to be for the representative districts, then you really can't do anything until the line is drawn. And this really puts people at a disadvantage who aren't already there as incumbents.
Yeah, which is a good segue to Joe Pickett. This affects you personally because although you haven't announced, you do intend to run for office, right? In which district?
I do, Saul, and I probably have a deeper understanding of how the process works because I've been on the state redistricting committee twice, special election districting committee. I've been a witness for MALDEF in a federal case. So I've been looking at what the city is doing, and I know that more often than not, the districts are drawn to favor incumbents. I plan on running for District 5, so I have the ability, I will be located close to the incumbent, so the chances of me winding up in that district are pretty high. But as Carmen said, the majority of people out there who are contemplating or thinking about it, they're already running up against a clock that's not going to work in their favor. If the city even chooses a district next Tuesday, that's 6 months and 12 days out before an election. The city charter says you have to live in a district 6 months. So the city would be basically telling prospective persons who want to make their voices known or get involved in city government, you've got 12 days to pack up your belongings, find a place in a district that you think you're going to wind up in. It's probably going to be challenged in court later in the fall. I can see that happening as well.
Do you think that perhaps if a potential candidate wants to move at a certain district, then discovers that he's no longer living in the district that they wanted to run for, and they have only 12 days to move, that will discourage them from running for office?
Very much so. I think there's a lot of people out there that we're going to hear from after the fact. I think you're going to hear about people who said, I was wanting to run, but they wound up putting me in this district, and the reverse will happen. And I'm not saying that there's anything that can be done about it legally right now, I don't plan on filing any lawsuit. I have talked to the Department of Justice. They're concerned about things like this. There's not a city in Texas that has waited this long. Every major city is, the shortest period out there is about 10 months before their elections that they have set the lines. And most of them are more than a year. They've already given the public notice. And it's not just people running for election. There's community of interest. There's people who would like to have this school district versus that school district. They would like to know that their neighbors or their family and friends. There's a lot more than just people running for office. This is the representation of the public before the city. It's a big deal.
Ms. Rodriguez, do you think or do you believe, of course, going beyond those who are running for office, for candidates, do you believe that perhaps some constituents, some potential voters will say this is just too confusing and in a way disenfranchises an entire community?
Yes, voters always are confused by so many changes. And although this has been anticipated because it's only done every 10 years, there's really been very little notice to the voters about what's going on. I would think that most people don't know what is involved with the redistricting process, how it affects them. And although it's not that complicated of a process when it comes to just the purpose of it, it's mainly to balance the population in the districts and to do it in a fair way that doesn't disenfranchise certain voters. It does get involved because there are so many factors to consider with communities of interest. And of course, the incumbents are very, very much interested in how their district is going to be designed. And of course, they're in charge of it right now. They hadn't been in charge of it before. The commission that they appointed was supposed to come up with recommendations, which they did. They recommended 3 maps, but now the City Council has 4 maps, so it's almost like they started the process all over again.
Okay. We're going to take a really quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, I'll ask my guests what they believe are the implications of having citywide district maps approved so close to elections. This is ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition, where news comes first.
Spring savings are in full bloom at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso. Like blossoming interest rates as low as like 1.9% APR for 60 months. Or stop and smell the sweet, sweet payment savings. New Elantras only $189 per month. New Konas only $239 per month. And new Tucsons or Santa Fe's, your choice, $299 per month. Spring savings are in full bloom at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso.
ABC-7's commitment to the borderland is strongest when big news breaks.
A massive fire in downtown El Paso. Flames are still very intense. We have multiple crews on the ground right now, live on the scene.
When did you realize this was going to get out of control?
Probably about 5 minutes after.
Could the walls collapse?
It could, yeah.
What kind of extra perspective can you give us on what it's been like for El Paso fire crews? Typically, we're not on the air at this time, but we are continuing our live breaking news coverage.
ABC-7, complete coverage of breaking news.
There's a reason ABC-7 is the team you know
And the team you trust. We know your time is valuable.
That's why we strive to bring you context, depth, and perspective to each story that you won't find anywhere else.
So many people at ABC-7 have made it their life's work to bring you timely, accurate news and information you count on.
The team you know and trust is deeper and more committed to you than ever.
That's why at ABC-7, news comes first.
At ABC-7, we made it easy to get the most out of the KVIA Storm Track Weather and Traffic app. Just point your phone at the screen to get step-by-step videos about how to set alerts on our app. Get hyperlocal weather conditions and custom severe weather alerts wherever you live and work. You'll be the first to know when severe weather heads your way. Use it to keep your family safe. Scan the code, get the app, get the alert.
Sponsored by Mattress Firm.
I think whatever map that we do choose, we need to take all of that into consideration. But I also acknowledge the fact and the people that I represent who are not able to be engaged in this kind of process, right? The people that live in the Triangle, where I can guarantee many people have never even been to. Those people need a voice, and the maps that were provided do not give them one.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. That was District 2 Representative Alexandra Anello voicing her concerns over the map city leaders are being asked to consider during a special meeting 2 weeks ago. I also want to welcome back Joe Pickett. Pickett is a former state representative and former city representative. He's also expected to run for city office. Also joining us is Carmen Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is representing the League of Women Voters. Joe and Ms. Rodriguez, I want to show you the district maps that are being considered. Now, these are just, these are just 3 of the maps that are being considered. This was discussed during the meeting 2 weeks ago. Have you both had a chance to look at these maps, and do you have any issues with these maps?
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, Saul, if you look at the one on the far left and the far right, and people are focusing in on the colors, look at the yellow. The yellow is all in the center towards the bottom of the map. In the far right, it's way above. So you're talking about community of interest that is very, very extreme. Not necessarily bad, but if I was looking at this as just an outside observer, I'd be, why the extreme differences in those? And you have to compare to what it currently is. So even though you have 3 maps there, it's more telling when you take what the current districts are. We are so lopsided in population. There's 50,000 population differences in some of those maps right now. So to me, all of that, looks like 1 is basically stayed about the same, or 2, and that's it.
But 2 is moves quite a
Yes.
bit. That's actually Ms. Anello's, Representative Anello's district. Ms. Rodriguez, your thoughts?
Well, frankly, the League of Women Voters had preferred a map that is not on the boards right now. What we did is that we tried to identify communities of interest through an interview process that took several months, and we interviewed people from all over the city trying to identify and acknowledge communities of interest. Based on the information that we received, many of the people told us their preferences, one of them being that the Mission Valley should be represented by 1 district. It's an easier way, they told us, of holding people accountable rather than having 3 or 4 representatives representing that particular district. The Mission Valley is not a district right now. It's always been separated, but you see that the middle map there has 3 different representatives, which is the case right now, and the first and the third are a little bit better in that they have just 2 representatives. But the maps did need a lot of changing because there had been gerrymandering in the past. And District 8, for example, presents a problem because District 8, which is in green, is a West Side district, and yet it does come down into the South El Paso, which is a very different community of interest than, say, up above Sunland Park area and other areas on the west side. So there are problems, and it is a difficult process when it comes to trying to balance everybody's interests. So I'm not too happy about any of these maps, but there are some that are better. There is 1, there are 2 that are.
Joe, you alluded to the fact that one of the reasons that they're taking so long to decide and eventually vote on a map is a sort of gerrymandering. Some folks just want to stay in office. And of course, when we talk about gerrymandering, it has to do with a specific party. But in this particular case, they're all Democrats. So is this a form of gerrymandering by virtue of waiting so long to approve a map?
I believe it is, and even at the beginning, the city on their own website put a date of July. And
initially, right?
Initially in July would have been way short of 6 months to living in a district. Even again, as I said, if they do this next week, the time frame there alone is very, very difficult for anybody who is interested in running, who is just the luck of the draw. They've got maps right now that show 4 different iterations. Let's take wherever Saul Saenz live. Yeah. Where you live, Saul, they've got iterations that have had you with 4 different representatives out of 8. Even you as a constituent are confused as to where I would be, and if you had an interest in your community and wanted to step up, and it's tough. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. You have to be thick-skinned. You have to be ready for the slings and arrows. And so if we give people a reason not to do it, this is it right here. This is a reason for people not to get involved in local politics.
Thus leading to low voter turnout.
Absolutely. It's like, why should I do it? What does it matter to me? They're going to draw the maps that are in their best interest. And as Carmen said, nobody is saying it's easy. It's very, very difficult. I've been involved in all these levels. It's hard. You will not make everybody happy. There's no high fives when a map is adopted. Never. But there are better maps, as Carmen said, than others, and there's a lot better than what is presented here.
But this is what they have to vote on. This is what city leaders have to vote on. Ms. Rodriguez, your thoughts on that? The fact that the one that the League of Women Voters, the maps that you all approved, isn't on here, but this is what they have to vote on. Your thoughts on that? Should we just get it done with?
Well, unfortunately, that's what's going to have to happen because there's no time left. And that may have been part of the problem. I mean, it is part of the problem, but I want to say that it may have been planned that way so that there would be public input had to stop, and so it's almost being rushed now. But yes, that one of these maps is probably going to be, there may be a couple of more edits to them, but pretty much I think it's going to be one of these maps, and that's what we're going to be stuck with for the next 10 years.
Yeah, but more edits also means going back to the drawing board. All right, we're going to take another quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. When we come back, we'll talk about what happens if the city fails to have a district map in place before the elections. We'll be right back.
That's a pretty tight spot.
Watch this.
Your Buick Park said so. That's so you.
Of course you know where we're going. That's so you.
Kinda got a sixth sense.
And a head-up display.
They're here.
You brought all these players in your Buick?
Yeah.
So you.
It is.
At the heart of every Buick SUV is you. Pay no interest on Buick SUV models.
See your El Paso, Las Cruces Buick dealers.
And now, most admired alum.
Get up there.
This is so embarrassing.
There's no way it's me.
You know her. You love her.
Ruh-roh. What are you doing here?
It's Anna Gomez!
Who?
Our first gazillionaire. With AT&T Fiber, Anna's got the fastest internet with hyper-gig speeds.
I didn't know you went to school.
We have a lot in common.
Live like a gagillionaire with AT&T Fiber. Now with speeds up to 5 gigs. Limited availability.
Come together and celebrate peace, love, and the greatest Beatles tribute concert ever with Rain, a tribute to the Beatles. Experience songs from Abbey Road and the rooftop concert live. Rain, a tribute to the Beatles.
Come together.
Give back to where you once belonged.
Tickets on sale now at elpasolive.com.
We've made a major upgrade to the ABC-7 studios.
But the team you know and trust still has the same commitment you expect when it comes to complete coverage of breaking news.
This is a lot more than new furniture and monitors.
We've also made a major investment in behind-the-scenes technology.
We've enhanced our ability to make complex stories understandable with big, bold graphics.
Always searching for new ways to serve you.
ABC-7, where news comes first.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. I also want to welcome back for our third and final segment, Joe Pickett. Pickett is a former state representative and former city representative. He's also expected to run for city office, and I'm about to ask him exactly which district he will be running in. Also joining us is Carmen Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is representing the League of Women Voters. There you go, Joe. Which district are you going to be running for?
Well, I actually said at the beginning, I'm not hiding. It was District 5. That's where I was living currently.
When will you announce, though?
Well, obviously can't until they set the boundaries. It's impossible to do that. I have, and my opponent's not here, so it's not fair to talk issues, but I'm running against a person who has not been attentive to the things that I think are important to El Paso. So my focus is running for District 5. That's it. I have the means. I'm not worried about what the city does next Tuesday. I've already secured a location near the incumbent.
Yeah.
So I'll be fine, but what about the other people out there that want to run?
Ms. Rodriguez, what is your understanding of what could happen if a map is not approved by City Council after this week coming up?
Well, what happens is that potential candidates could be barred from registering it as a candidate because they haven't lived in the district for 6 months. So they would lose the opportunity to run, which is not a simple matter. I think that that should be a big concern to the city. And it puts everyone in a very rushed status of trying to prepare for elections and do fundraising and all the things that candidates have to do, even if they are able to move into a district.
Yeah. Is it your understanding, and this question is for both of you, is it your understanding that this issue could end up in the courts? I'll start with you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Well, it would be very difficult for it it could end up in the courts, but you know, it's very difficult to sue the city for these kinds of issues. Almost for any issue, it's a very difficult process, and then it won't get resolved until a couple of years. So it could end up in the courts, and it would be a shame because everything would kind of be chaotic, not knowing what's going to happen, but that's the way things happen sometimes, especially when you don't plan well.
Joe, your opinion on this, and I think we've already discussed this, that both LULAC and the NAACP are taking a close look at this, right?
Yes, the communications I've had, I believe they are. I don't think an individual will be suing right now. I'm not. I think if somebody who doesn't listen to News Xtra decides to run come October and files and they find out the city says you're ineligible, I think that person at that time might consider a lawsuit, but it'll probably be drug out to the point where they miss that election cycle. I think an issue like this will be kind of either after a fact, or if an organization can get like the Department of Justice to take a look at this and just kind of wag their finger. Some of this may be honest mistakes. I don't think that's the issue. Somebody's giving the city council bad information. Why did they even have July as an original date when their charter says 6 months and living in the district? So there's a lot of things that the city council needs to ask questions about their legal representation. And going forward, I think this is important discussion so that after this election, we can do a better job. I mean, we got to get through it. I think the city's going to get away with it only because it's too late.
Yeah. You know, first of all, I do agree with you 100% that everyone should be watching ABC-7 Extra, Sunday edition.
And it's that one person that's running that didn't watch the show.
However, you did mention the fact that, and this is very important, that every city in Texas had the same information that everyone else had after the 2020 census, and some cities actually moved faster to try to approve their district maps. As a matter of fact, one of the most recent was San Antonio. Why do you think that, first of all, do you believe that the city leaders are dragging their feet on this intentionally?
I'm afraid to say intentional because there's some really, really good people that work in the city. There's some good elected officials. I think bad information, but it is kind of strange that Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Houston, everybody either has or will settle their districting maps minimum 10 months and most of them a year before their elections that had the same information the city of El Paso did.
Ms. Rodriguez, what sort of action will the League of Women Voters be moving forward now that we know it's taking so long to approve these maps? Will the League of Women Voters take some sort of action, announce and say, look, you know, you guys are taking too long, you need to wrap this up?
Well, sure. We're always advocating for the voters, and the voters need to have more advance notice. They need more information, and the League has always worked to do that, to inform the voters, because sometimes the jurisdictions just don't take the time and trouble to do that. The League has also been supporting the concept of independent redistricting commissions, which is being tried in cities across the nation. In Texas, Austin already has an independent redistricting commission, which takes the redistricting process out of the incumbent's hands, which I think would help a great deal. And it would be based on more neutral and objective principles.
Taking out the politicizing of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Joe, we also talked about the possibility of having at-large district. That's a good concept right there, or at least a different concept, because the only at-large seat that we have right now is a mayoral seat.
That's correct. Some of the larger cities do that now. Houston has 16 seats. Some of them are at large. Other places do that. And when Carmen again brought up an issue about community of interest, that is a way for people to run who feel that they aren't being represented in any other way unless they can just get their name on a ballot, period. That would obviously take a charter amendment change, but it's discussion for the next city council that is seated next January after the November 8th elections.
Yeah. So when do you plan to announce, Joe?
Not until after the maps are finalized. And so if that's Tuesday, it'll be the 6 months. So I plan on formally doing something by May 8th. May 8th is 6 months out before the elections.
And if you have to move in order to qualify?
I've already taken care of that.
Pray tell.
As I said, you look at the incumbents and you position yourself where an incumbent is. They're going to protect themselves. And so I have the ability to do that. And I have a location that's very close to the incumbent.
Do you think it would raise the same, I guess, the same controversy that we had with the two sitting representatives running against each other because one was taken away?
I doubt it, because it's not a pairing. And I've represented all of this area as a state representative or a city council member. So it's actually a smaller area than I've represented in the past. As a state representative, I represent almost all of the majority portions of all of the iterations of the map. And I do believe it's a community of interest.
Mr. Rodriguez, you're very much involved in politics. Your husband is a former state senator. What are your thoughts on a personal level about everything that's going on with the city taking so long to finally approve these district maps?
Well, we follow the city's operations and projects and so forth very closely, and it always seems that there is not the best planning. The city does have some very good staff, but sometimes it seems like the purpose is to try not to get sued, and questions of efficiency, questions of effectiveness, being equitable and democratic are not so important to the city, which is maybe one of the reasons we have low voter turnout. I don't think that that the city is generally that responsive to the community, and I think it shows in processes like redistricting and others that come up.
Okay, Carmen Rodriguez, Joe Pickett, thank you so much for taking time on your Sunday evening to share with our viewers what is happening and what is it that you hope will happen. Thank you. And I want to thank you for joining us. We have a link on our website, kvia.com, to those 3 city maps I showed earlier. Once a map is chosen, you'll know where to vote and you'll know who you'll be voting for. I'm Saul Saenz, and this has been ABC 7 Extra Sunday Edition. Good night y buenas noches.